Hey everyone, welcome back to part 2 of the texturing tutorial. In this part we're going to be texturing the main body of the gun. So a couple of things before we start. There's a few changes that I made, I detailed them over here. So first change I made off recording basically was I added this spec kind of brushy stuff in the metal. And the reason I did that was because I saw this reference here had a little bit of it right here, and then a little bit of this like shape right here as well. So I added that just very subtly. All I did was just take like a light speck, just use the standard brush here and just brushed a little bit of it in. And that just kind of creates a little bit of a highlight like we kind of see in this reference. So that's the first change I made. The second change, so I actually misread the reference. The stripes go horizontally on the barrel instead of vertically like I had them, so I just literally took the stripes and I rotated it 135 as opposed to the 45 that I had it right here. So in doing so, that kind of changed a little bit of the height. So there was a lot of these height specs that looked kind of weird now that I changed this horizontally, so I removed a couple. Nothing like significant, just I also I think I toned down the height of it a little bit. They were just a bit too strong. I just wanted something a bit more smoother in certain areas. And then the last thing I did was I took these vertical stripes down here, so all the stripes had to change directions basically. So these vertical stripes I basically just took the height slider and cranked it down a bit. It was something that helps like visually separate it from these horizontal stripes. So I thought that looked kind of nice. So it's like stronger up here on the barrel and lighter down here. I thought that added a nice contrast in the render. So between these two like parts, even though they're part of the same like piece of metal, you know, I just adding contrast between them is, I think, looks really cool. So with that being said, I think that's just about all the changes I made. Yep, so we can go ahead and move on to the body. So I'm gonna remake the material from scratch. I think it's I like doing that because it ultimately kind of leads to the body looking a bit different than the barrel, which is ultimately kind of what we're trying to do to push material separation in different values and stuff. So I am, however, going to take the silver metal, because that is something that we don't really need to remake again, I don't think. We can kind of recycle it. So let's grab the body here. Our base silver values could go all right there. Alright, so now let's break up this material stuff in here so we can take this. I don't know what that layer is. We could do this. Pick out this inner piece in there, give it maybe darker specular value. Or maybe what we do is we actually just grab like the diffuse value from here and just give it a normal specular value and then kind of just decrease the gloss. Take out the blue in it, just make it kind of a black metal piece maybe. Oop, autosave. Sorry, I had to pause there to find the reference. So it looks like, yeah, this inner piece is just kind of like a basic black glossy metal type of deal. So we can just take the specular, crank it down. We can lower the diffuse even more from there. It'll hardly be seen, but we can just give it some slight roughness variation later. And then what we can do, so the spring is just the default. Okay, yeah, so we need to make another fill layer just for the spring. So let's click on all these springs here. There we go. Oh, I need to click these as well. Okay. And that one back there. Oh, there's more. Okay. Modeled in a lot of detail on this thing, as we can clearly see. There we go. Now we're just kind of match this value. I'm gonna make it metal, so black in the diffuse. However, I'm gonna probably crank it to like right about there, maybe. And then let's see how that looks. So we don't need to export the barrel anymore. We just need to export the body. There we go. And that looks just like the reference, really. Yeah. I don't think we need to do much work there, other than maybe just grab some dirt. Maybe let me grab a stencil. Something really basic here. This is a stencil that I made myself. I got it from textures.com. You could probably just stencil in some just basic dirt stuff. Maybe even just make this oils. We could take this noise, scale it up, see if that works. Maybe crank it down a bit. Okay, how did this look? The metal value needs to be a bit glossier, so we can do this, increase the gloss, there we go. Some subtle gloss variation. You can add another layer, add black mask, add a fill. One of my grunge fingerprints, dirty. We can use that here. So we can kind of see what that looks like. Not bad. Oops. I think that looks pretty good. We'll dial back the gloss just a bit so we get more of the metal color to show up. Just dial it back slightly. There we go. Let's see what that looks like. Okay. I think we'll roll with that for now. Let's roll with that. All right. So next up, we got the body of the gun. And I have this really cool reference that I'm going to kind of follow. We've got this reference here. Got a lot of oils and variation on this reference here. That'll be good. This one's really nice too. So let's go ahead and start making the base material. Oh, also this part is, we can go ahead and mask out a couple more silver areas like this one right here. Not sure what's going on there. That's what's going on, yeah. I had this radial brushing layer that I think we could just turn off or delete. There's some other metal bits here. So it looks like these guys right here are silver. Let me double check that that bolt is actually silver. Yeah, it is, okay. That's a silver, this one's not silver. These ones are black painted metal. What about the right side? Black painted metal as well. This guy down here is silver, just like on the other side. Silver in there, we already got that. Hammer is silver. And then I have a firing pin in here, or I forget what that piece is called, but that's also probably silver as well. Let's see, what else is there? There's this top bolt right here that's silver. I might make these inner pieces here silver, but I know these are silver for this reference. However, these are kind of a very specific matte silver, so we'll make another copy. The base layer, put it in here. There you go. Those are symmetry in the UVs, so we can do that. Yeah, something like that. Kind of a matte silver. Cool. Let's give the hammer its own unique metal here. What was I gonna do? Yes. Add another paint layer and remove the noise here. Do that again right there. For this one, All right, we'll stick with that for now. So right now, this gloss variation that I added on another layer is pretty strong on everything, really. So I'm gonna reduce it right here. We'll do our own roughness pass on that. Okay, that's good enough to start, I think. We'll deal with the normals and stuff in a bit. Okay, let's get the new body metal. Okay, so we can sort of pick out some diffuse values, but we're not going to go exact. We're going to separate them so that we can visually see a difference between the two. That's what we like to do. Let's select the body there. I think I'll do the screws on their own separate thing. Material, I mean. Okay, so that's base 1. Base value 2 we'll assign to the iron sight and this guy right here, since they read about the same, I think. Bring those use values down. Looks like I didn't select that. There we go. Bring those values a bit down. Then maybe we go... Actually, we haven't messed with the gloss value, so we'll go gloss. Look at the gloss channel, we'll do that. I think that's good for now. A bit. Glossier, there we go. And then for these pieces, we'll go glossier, so we can get a nice separation. So basically, when you look at it from the side, we see that these materials are visually different. So that's what makes a more interesting model. Some more interesting textures, I should say. Okay. So let's do another material separation. Let's do it with this piece right here. Now, yeah, see, I don't know why that's happening with this piece. I know for a fact I didn't weld them together, but so we kind of gotta select all this piece by a UV shell. I'm not sure why that's happening, but no. Yeah, not sure why. I know it's a separate piece like in the model itself, so very strange, but increase the gloss on it. Gonna look at reference. So visually they're very similar. Maybe even this piece is probably more matte actually. Yeah, I think that's actually cooler. I think it looks better. Let's crank the diffuse. Let's maybe go darker with it. We can go with that. Let's go with that for now. Okay, let's start adding. Should we do the bolts now? Okay, let's start doing something else. So in a lot of these references, you can kind of see like it kind of gets burned, and then like the intersection's a bit different than the outer section, especially here you can see the discoloration right here. So we're gonna kind of work on that a little bit, I think. We're just gonna do a simple UV generator. There we go. We'll take that and we'll just invert it. Invert true. There we go. So we get sort of this result, and we are going to make it brighter. Then we'll take our slider up here and crank it down to a more reasonable value. I think something like that looks good. Although one thing, I kind of want to see if we can remove some of these like weird shapes. See what happens when I add a blur to it, maybe. Yeah, I kind of like that. Let's go with that. Let's add a blur to it. And let's take this down to a more reasonable value. And let's see how that looks in the export. Right now it's not visible at all. So let's crank it a bit. Let's also change the gloss on it as well. Which admittedly we probably should have just done one change at a time, but we're just going for it. Seeing how it looks. That will show up for sure, I think. Yep. Okay, that's good. It's perfectly just like subtle enough too. Quite like that. Okay. Let's go ahead and add some normal map details. Let's call this UV diffuse highlight. Let's go ahead and call it that. All right. Okay. Let's add some normals. So black mask. We're gonna black mask it to the body. We're gonna pick out a Quixel material to use. So Quixel material to use. Let's try steel. So there's this one Quixel material called Quixel Metal Steel Dusty that I'm gonna use. Let's go ahead and drag and drop that in. Off the gloss information, we just want the normals. There we go. Go ahead and turn that up a bit. Okay. It looks decent, but I think there's just too much of this like scratchy stuff in there. Alright, I think maybe we'll scratch that and I'll just make it myself, I guess. Let's grab Perlin noise. 3D Perlin noise. Scale it up a ton like that. Let's punch that out in the height. We want outwards. Something like that. Tone it down a bit. Change it to add a bit of contrast. No, it's still just not quite looking right. What I think I'm going to do instead is I'm going to use a Quixel material that I love to use. If you watch my streams, you probably already know, but it's called, let me see, Quixel Plastic Old Computer. If you want this material, I think you can find it on my server, on my Discord server, so feel free to join that. But this material is great because it gives us a super nice sharp normal map noise, just like that. Yeah, this is what we're looking for. Something like this. So if you want this exact material, I think you can find it on my Discord server. Other than that, I'd recommend working with Perlin noise and a white noise filter if you don't want to use it. So there we go. Because I don't think it's an old material, so I don't think it's available to purchase anymore, which kind of sucks. But yeah, there we go. Okay, now let's grab brain. Let's do brain. Let's make some oils. Add black mask, add a fill. Let's get just my fingerprints dirty. Just for like a base fill layer. There we go. You know, something like that isn't really that bad, actually. Man, this grunge fingerprints dirty. I love this filler. It's really nice. I like this one a lot. Let's go ahead and add work in some manual stuff. Add paint. I like to set them to linear dodge add so we don't undo stuff underneath. Lower the opacity, and let's look at this reference here to see where the oils leak out of. So when the gun goes off, you know, the bullet explodes and gases and oils go everywhere. So these are some of the crevices that it leaks out of. So we're going to add all of these by hand using the standard brush. So go ahead and just trace this little outline here. Break it up manually. You get something like that, although that's, if you go too bright, you start getting the mirror effect, but so we're just gonna lower the gloss. There we go. Just like that. That looks great. Cool. We'll add this down here. We'll add, just kind of paint in some rough shapes. Like that. Add a couple sharp little breaks in it. There we go. I like that. Sweet. Wow, you can really see it leaking out of here too. So what we can do, we can really just kind of do this, really. And then just take it and break it up. Break up the edges. Maybe paint some more in. Take out some. There we go. Nice result. Nice result. Cool. So it looks like we've got oils following this whole handle too. I'm going to activate symmetry for this part. I think symmetry isn't exactly aligned, but I think if I paint on this side, yeah, there we go. I don't have to, we're going to break it up on the other side, but we're just going to kind of save a little bit of time just doing this. All about time saving. Not really, but you know. When you're lazy like me, I like to save time. There we go, something like that. Then on this side, we can kind of change it up so that when I go to render, it's not identical. So we'll do something like that. We'll do something like that. There you go. Something like that looks great. Cool. So now we've got a lot of oils right here. This is exactly where the bullet goes off right here. So there's gonna be a lot of oils right here. We know how to add that. We just kind of brush it in. No real stenciling here yet. We'll add some stencils later, but for now, just kind of, you can kind of see the highlight follows around this whole shape, so we'll add some of that too. Sort of painted in loose shapes. And then yeah, getting oils leaking around bolts is something that's really important when you're trying to do guns, so that's one area you want to focus on. One thing I'm noticing is the grain. Oh, looks like I have a bit of a bake error there. I'll have to fix that before I submit or upload this. So we're gonna set it to triplanar, increase it. Okay. Yeah, looks like a bit of a bake error there. Okay, I think all it is there, I think it's just the shading of the model. Let's add some more oils leaking up here. You can kind of see it arc up here and then like kind of a bit up here. So we'll add that too. It also goes along this edge as well. So it's really just all around this cylinder that we're gonna kind of have to brush them in. So let's go ahead and do that. We're gonna symmetry this part here because I know it's the same. Okay. See how the other side looks. Looks good. Cool. Let's keep brushing it in. We'll just go kind of subtly right here as well. You can see right here, it looks a bit too flat and square, so we're just gonna kind of brush it in, break it up a bit. Same right there, it looks a little too square, so we'll just do something like that. I believe this side is different right here, so we'll just kind of break it up. Do a different bang up job on it. There we go. Yeah, something like that looks great. Cool. Okay, real quick, we can go ahead and stencil in the decals just because it's kind of just easy, so we'll just do that. For stickers and decals, I like to lower the gloss a bit, so decals, there we go. Add a paint layer there. Let me pull up the stencils. Sorry about that. Looks like I didn't have the stencils imported, so there we go. So these are all included with the tutorial, so we can just go ahead and stencil some of these in. So it looks like the Nighthawk here goes right here, about this distance away. About this size, maybe a bit bigger. I think a little bit more this way. Be a little more down this way too, about right there, I think. Yep, that looks good for me. Let's go ahead and add this Korth logo. Which I believe is actually the same position as this guy right here. What I'm gonna do is take this, the diameter of this circle here. I'm gonna hold Alt and then I believe it's Shift and then drag. So now we go to the other side and our stencil is gonna be still the same size. So we're gonna kind of look on this side, look at this side, go right here. Do about that. Yeah. Just kind of a little hacky way to just kind of make a quick little ring there. And then we're gonna get Korth. There we go. Korth has been added. Okay, what else is there? So on the other side, we have Nighthawk Customs, right? There we go. So with these, I'm not just gonna do a straight up decal like we just did. I'm gonna make a new layer, add a black mask. I'm gonna add it in about right. USA goes about right. Smaller. Right there, I'd say. Get a different view so we can kind of see. Like the A kind of lines up at the bottom of this bolt on this one. I believe it's sort of about right there. Yeah, I can live with that. I can live with that. This one doesn't have the serial number there, but go ahead and stencil in the serial number. Do it on the same layer, just a little serial number here. Something like that. And with these, we're gonna, instead of just having it be a decal, we're gonna punch it in the height a little bit. Just a tiny, tiny bit. And then what I like to do with stamped in or laser etched in decals like this, I like to grab an anchor point. Oops, not a color selection. Drop an anchor point so that we can reference it in a layer above it. Add a fill layer. access it here, and then do a filter, blur, then grab the same fill layer, drag it up, and hit subtract. So we get a border around it. Then what I like to do is I just like to lower the gloss, or maybe increase the gloss. That makes it look kind of like it's glowing, so I'll just lower the gloss slightly, just very slightly, so it's not super subtle, but it's there. Punch out the height a tiny bit, and then lower it a bit. Something a bit more interesting than just stamping in text like that. I think that looks pretty cool. All right, so with that, I think we can move on. I think we'll do the text up here a little bit. Oh, I do have to do this logo actually. This one I'm going to etch in just like the other ones for Remington Mag. Just autosave. Just like that. And then lower the opacity just a tiny bit, just to make it a bit more gray than the other ones. Cool. Kind of bothers me that it's not centered. It looks like it's kind of not centered. Well, okay, it actually is centered, so it's my mistake. That's better. Cool. It's just bothering me that it wasn't centered like that. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn down the grain and add other sort of details to it as well as that. Let's see how this looks. Looking good so far. Looking good so far. We can make these oils read a bit stronger. See how this looks. Okay, that's not bad. Here, just paint out some of these like major. Paint out some of these super bright areas. Just not leave those in. Other than that, I think we're good to move on. So I think one thing I'm going to add right here is just some vertical milling lines. For that, I'm just going to grab these stripes, classic stripes out of the asset library. Rotate it 45 or 35. Add a paint layer, set it to multiply. Add it right there. Grab. We have a UV generator. Yes, we do. Grab this UV border generator, set it to subtract. I was on the wrong layer, sorry. There we go. And let's set the UV border distance to invert so we can kind of just remove it from the edges a bit. Let's take our different channels and kind of change some of the values. That will increase the height with a moire effect. This effect right here is called the moire effect. So that's something we do not want. Especially in games, we do not want that. Okay. Someone outside has a really loud car. That's really nice. Add a really subtle warp filter. Keep it pretty subtle. There we go. Let's see how this looks in the render. too strong. It doesn't exist in the reference, so I'm gonna keep it pretty subtle. Like I don't see any references with this sort of milling lines. I think what I'm gonna do maybe is just turn off the height and maybe just have it in the gloss. All right, let's mess with some values. Something that was just very subtle like that. I think that'll do. See how that looks real quick. Yeah, I think that's better. Okay. So we've got all that. Cool. Let's add some dirt. Let's add some dirt. A lot of these layers could probably be recycled from the barrel, but I think it's nice to remake things every once in a while. Grab this grunge leaks dirty. Let's see what this looks like. Well, it's quite dirty, so we will tone it down. Okay. We can go ahead and add some stencils, I think. Let's grab grunge fingerprints dirty, but let's stencil in sort of our own stuff here. Lower the opacity a bit, maybe do something like this. Stuff like that. Let's grab, so this is the dirt, and this is the oil. Let's add another paint layer, set it to linear dodge, excuse me, and then there we go. Stencil in some more oils. Let's grab a scratch so we can put in some scratches. So I'm gonna probably use, let's have this on another layer actually. I'm gonna grab David Gruyer's grunges. I'm gonna grab, let's try these scratches deposits. Let's try some of these. Okay, so let's paint on a nice scratch right here. Crank the opacity so we can see it. Okay, let's grab a levels so we can take out some of the background values, just like that, just like that. There we go. Let's make it glossy. What happens if we do this? We can really add a scratch to it. We can paint. See how that looks in the render. That might look pretty cool. Just kind of experimenting with different values there. I think that looks pretty good actually. We'll undo some of the remove some of the speckly stuff around it. I kind of like that. We can go with that. Let's add some more. Add a couple more scratches, little fine micro scratches. There we go. So the speckly stuff, more of the scratchy stuff. Something like that. Let's add a nice bigger scratch here. Cool. Let's do, I don't really see any scratches. These guns are pretty well taken care of in the reference, which kind of sucks for us because we can't really see a whole lot of wear, but I think one of the main parts that I want to kind of drill in this tutorial is to sometimes the references can be very boring. So I think it's important as artists to get better and kind of venture off and just add details that look cool. So it's kind of one of the main things I want to drive home with this tutorial. It's kind of what I'm doing right now. Adding just very subtle micro scratches and stuff like that. That looks cool. That looks cool. Let's see how that looks in the render. It's pretty cool. They're pretty subtle. I feel like we're micro detailing a bit too early though, so. One thing I am going to do is I'm going to increase the base diffuse, or a base gloss value. I'm going to increase it a little bit. Yeah, I think something like that looks good. Give it a more glossy metal feel. So with these oils, we can crank them up now. Crank them up even higher. Yeah, I think that'll help us texture a little bit easier. So. Let's add a little bit of this color variation. We can see in the render it gets a little yellow around here, gets a little cloudy and stuff around here. So what I'm gonna do actually is turn this, I'm gonna do it in the specular instead of the diffuse. So we get kind of a metallic highlight like this. This looks pretty cool actually. Just do the whole revolver like that, but off all the other values besides the specular, and then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of I think I'm going to get a stencil actually. Let's find a stencil to use for this. Maybe we try this grunge dirt muddy. Let's try this. Check that out. That looks really cool. Let's see how that looks in the render. Okay, so we need to tone it down a bit. Where's the specular channel there? Yeah, so doing specular variation is super subtle most of the time. So even just a little bit like that goes a long way. So we'll add that there. We'll go on the other side, add it here as well. I really like this like bud shape that we got here. This one looks nice too. We're gonna kind of add it all along here. Let's take this bit more opacity so we can paint it out a little bit faster. Let's add a bit more over here on the trigger, it looks like, right above the trigger. This is a cool reference. I don't know what's going on here on the trigger, but we can try to add that later. On the triggers texture set. I don't want it to mix with the oils, so I'm going to kind of paint it out of the oil. It kind of looks like that here. I just want to visually separate it. Fix these projection errors on the bottom. We don't really need them. Add a bit more. And just kind of redo it. Okay, let's see what that looks like. Pretty good. Maybe a bit less cloudiness down here. I think instead what I'll opt for is just kind of manually just do that. As opposed to getting these kind of cloudier shapes. Something like that I think will look really good. So just aside from just yellow, there's a bit of red, so we'll just add a bit of red as well. I'm going to set the specular to overlay. Yeah, something like that, I think. Let's add a paint layer. Let's lower the paint layer. Not quite showing up, which is a bit strange. There we go. That's showing up a bit more. Let's see what happens when we lower the gloss on these. I think giving it a higher gloss kind of helps it out. Let's see. See how the red shows up too. Okay, yeah, that looks pretty good. That's pretty cool. I'm gonna add a bit more right here. It feels like we have kind of like a gap right there. So what I'll do is I'll take the yellow, just kind of manually paint. Oops, it's too much. Yeah, okay. There's a bit of red up here you can kind of see. So let's add our red. Let's do it on a new layer so we can kind of make different changes as needed. These might not even exist on the textures. They might even just be lighting, but something that I think is going to look really cool. Let's add just a tiny bit over here as well. Maybe just like around some of these bolts right here. Add a tiny bit of red. See how that looks? If we can even see it, that is. Oh yeah, too strong. Way too strong. Like you poured a Hawaiian punch on it. So that's that one. This is what we want to change. See how that looks. Better. Cool. That looks good. Go with that. Cool. These lines are a bit too strong now that I look at it. I think that's coming from the gloss, so we'll take these filling lines, take the gloss, kind of shift it so we don't see it as much. Lower the height as well. Already on 2, but that I think will be fine. Also, one thing I noticed is that, so the milling lines are above the oil, so it's leading to this effect. I don't think that's really the most realistic way to go about it, so we'll do that instead. Cool. Looking pretty good. We got nice cool color variations going on. This will lead to a really cool result. So now I think we still need to just work on some oils and stuff. So one thing I like to do with oils on like the main body of a gun is I like to add these sort of specks. These specks, and with that we're gonna use. I think I can use the same filler we've been using. Yeah, so let's go ahead and add a fill. Go ahead and import that. Crank the contrast on it a bit, and then crank it. There we go. And that should lead to no change. There we go. So these specs really show up a lot, so you can crank them down. Yeah, I like that a lot. Really like specs like that. They're like really cool. already we're looking pretty good. Already I'm seeing the dirt being too strong, like way too strong. It's kind of odd. Although I did texture it with, or the value is from the old base value that I had, so go ahead and remove that. We can go ahead and add some dirt type stuff. Add a bit of dirt around some of these bolts right there. I think we're also seeing a bit of that in the reference. Let's keep trying. Let's try some more dirt type shapes. There we go. So I'm gonna add a bit of, well, actually, no, we should probably stick to, I jump around a lot when I'm texturing, so I'm gonna force myself to just stick to this. So it's really a lot of like a balancing act between the oils and the dirt. It's quite hard sometimes to get good, satisfying separations and stuff like that. That I think looks pretty nice. Another thing we're gonna have to add is some of these specs, but we'll do that right after this. Right. I want to make a quick change to the base material. So it looks like the highlight is a bit brighter than what I have. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to increase the specular just a slight bit. Let's see how that looks. That might give us just a cooler read, honestly. A bit brighter. A bit cooler, honestly. What happens if we really push the contrast? Let's see what this does. Getting a little experimental here. I don't like it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to increase the diffuse altogether, and then take the UV highlight and increase that as well. So we get a little too gray, perhaps. Maybe we take down the specular. I'm changing the wrong value. Yeah, so I think we're just a bit too gray. Lower that a bit. Okay. See how that looks? So gray materials, they look kind of flat sometimes, so we might even just undo all these changes. We'll see what happens. All right, so I kind of like this, so we'll stick with this for now. But it's just too different, actually. Yeah, it's just too different than the barrel. We need to tone it down. To go about right there. Take the UV generator. Lower that as well. Sometimes when you push the material separation just way too hard, then it looks just kind of rough and just went a bit blue with it as well. Let's just color pick this value. somewhere like that. Let's try something like that. Okay, I paused the recording just to kind of get, I was fiddling with it too much, but I think right here's where I'm going to stick with for now. Let's go ahead and add some diffuse variation. And by that, I'm probably just going to add a few specks around all over the place. So let's do white. Let's turn down the gloss on them too. Tone them down a bit. Something that helps it look not as flat. Now we can really see the, yeah, that looks great. That looks really nice. So let's add some more softer shapes now. Got that, diffuse variation, copy one, black mask, add a fill. Try this one, grunge leak dirty. And we'll kind of work it from there. So we just get kind of some subtle breakups, some cool shapes that'll look nice when we don't have a very good lighting setup like I have here. Cool. Let's increase it a bit more maybe. If you go too high with like diffuse stuff, it starts looking really fake. We just gotta kind of be careful with it. We'll go with that. I notice it's kind of acting like dirt, so let's remove it from the gloss and then let's re-export. That looks looking good. We're looking good. Yeah, see, like something like this is just so clean, it's just kind of boring. Gotta come up with our own ideas here. Cool, that looks pretty good. Let's move on and work on some other parts of this. So let's go ahead and make the screws. So these screws are all black. These ones. Put those as black too. Let's do these as black. Black. This part is baked in, so I'm gonna manually paint that. No need to do any fancy ID mapping or anything like that. Just paint it in. Actually, before I forget, one thing I want to try to do. Sorry. Add a bit of brushing. So I'm gonna grab brush. I'm gonna use a Quixel material. This one's called Quixel Aluminum Brushed. So I was kind of debating whether I should be using Quixel material since this is like a tutorial trying to show you how I work, but I think it's really just not fair to you guys to not use these Quixel materials because these are absolutely essential. And these can be found on the Quixel website. So just leave the gloss at like something like that. Maybe rotate it. Scale it down maybe. I think something like that would look really cool. The slight separation in the gloss too looks great. So if I do happen to render from angle like this, we'll definitely see that. Let's go ahead and add some oils to this part here. Let's find a different stencil to use. This one's too subtle. I'll use this. Well, let's try this one. So the brushing is over everything, which we don't want. We want it down here. Saving, there we go. So let's grab the oils. Sometimes when you press X, Painter doesn't register that it wants to go from black to white. Sometimes it doesn't do that. I think that's a bug. It's really annoying. I'm gonna kind of paint some right here. I think that'll look cool. Okay. Leave it at that for now. Let's work on these screws that we were doing. So these are going to be pretty simple, I think. I don't think we need to do a whole lot. Yeah. So we want them to be visually separated as well. We'll go about right there. We'll take the diffuse, maybe bring it down. I think going shinier on the bolts looks kind of cool. We'll do that. We'll go a bit shinier for the bolts. Glossier, if you. Cool. So one thing I'm going to do is you can almost sort of see like this like worn out section right here. So I'm going to kind of add that. These ones are flat. This is a different reference. So just FYI. I'm going to take the specular, crank it up. Add a black mask to it, add a paint to it. We're essentially going to do this, just like that. Although that's a bit too... Let's go with that for now. We're going to lower it in a second. We just want to get it set up first. Something like that, I think looks cool. Add a fill, let's do grunge fingerprints dry, and then we'll just multiply it. So we get something like that. That looks cool, that looks cool. Let's add a generator. Add some dirt. Grab it there, dirt. Don't really need to do any stenciling for dirt. It's just too small to justify it, so we will do this, crank the gloss. We're gonna lower the specular too on it. Literally just like that. Oh, I don't know why I flipped it thinking it's like good lighting. It was weird. So already we're achieving a pretty realistic looking result, I think. It's a little cheesy right there, so we'll fix that. Sorry if I bumped the microphone there. Just paint a little bit of it out. Let's go a little subtler. Like that. Let's go ahead and recycle the noise layer. Specs grain. Yes, this layer. This is the computer plastic layer. Control V, there we go. We go ahead and just remove the mask. It's going to affect all of them. It's fine. Just to add a very subtle normal map noise to it. Very cool. And then we can try to add a bit of brushing. See if we can do that. Oh, so they're UV'd differently, so we need to triplanar project this way. So it looks like we'll need two different brushing layers. That's unfortunate. So this one will affect only this one, so we want to paint out this bolt. This one will affect only the bottom one. So now we can control these independently. There we go. That's what I was looking for. Something like that. Yep, we'll do something like that. That looks cool. See if we can add a bit of brushing here. Oh, this is on a different layer, so we can't really do that. Oh, this brushing. Add a little bit of something to the normal map, although that's a bit much, honestly. Not bad, not bad. Not bad at all. I think I want to do real quick, so I want to take this before I forget, because I was going to do it earlier, but I'm gonna grab this. I believe this is oil here, yes. Paint in oils sort of like this around the border here. Yeah, something like that. It adds a nice contrast when we render it. Let's see it. Other side. Yeah, it adds a nice like little contrast around the border barrel there. That part there. Go ahead and work on. These pieces are part of the barrel, correct? Yes. Hammer. Oh, that's the silver. Whoops. Go ahead and lower the gloss on these. They're already like too similar visually. Go ahead and add the red thing here for the safety. Go ahead and make it like a red-orange. One thing I am going to do to it is red safety. I'm going to add an anchor point to it. I'm going to make a new layer. Add a fill. And then in that fill, I'm going to grab the anchor point for it. Make a new fill, give it Perlin noise. Set it to multiply. Increase the scale a ton. There we go. You don't need really any diffuse. That's just something I thought would look cool, but we'll lower the gloss so it's kind of not even. Increase the gloss here. Increase the gloss here. There we go. Height is mainly what I want to change. So this height, you kind of see it kind of bubbles up a little bit. So we're going to kind of, it makes it feel more like paint. So do something like that. Yeah, I think that looks cool. Perhaps a bit too saturated in the red. Oops, I don't know what. Bit too saturated, I think. That's perfect. See how that looks. Nice. One thing I want to do is I want to add a paint layer and just kind of chip out some of the edges a little bit, just to add a little bit of wear to it. I imagine maybe actually instead of doing it down there, so this is where you use it all the way up here, because it's, you can see the knurling up, or the grip pattern up here, so I'd assume you'd probably touch it a lot up here, so maybe we can add some right here. Visual storytelling element. Cool. Good. I think this metal piece actually, something about it is a little different. So what I'm gonna actually do, I'm actually going to separate it out on a new material. Increase the specular. If I could actually select it, there you go. Just doesn't feel like a full linear default, which is what this default specular value is called, linear default. Doesn't really feel like that kind of value in certain references. It feels more like that. At least in this reference here. I'm kind of a mix and match references kind of guy. I do like to find things that look cool in other references and some stuff that looks not cool in others, and I just kind of mix and match to however I kind of feel like. Because at the end of the day, it's art, you know? If it's not fun, then why bother? I believe Reggie from Nintendo said that. Okay, one thing I'm going to add to the body real quick is some little height specs. And on this one, I think the body does kind of look cool when you lower the. Maybe I'll think about it. For this one, I'm going to grab David Gruyer's grunges here. This one's called Specs Hairs. I need to create a black mask. Add a fill. I'm going to use this to create some sort of surface variation in the height channel. So let's increase it, and let's do this. Take out just about everything, but height, crank it up. There we go. Just like we did on the barrel, sort of. Now we can take the height slider here and crank down the opacity a bit to get something sort of like that. So we go inwards. I think with this one actually go inwards, and then what we'll do is we'll do this, rotate it, scale it up, and then we'll go higher. We have some that's going in, some that's coming out. I think that looks pretty interesting. Yeah, so these are super subtle, like micro small. So may consider adding a new material on top. Might do pixel thick machine paint. What does this look like? Yeah, I don't think that's quite right. Although that is kind of, look, not quite right. I think I'm looking more for something like, let's try pixel plastic rubberized. Nope, doesn't look, that one's not really working. So this is Quixel Rubber Synthetic. And one thing that you'll notice that it does is it kind of makes, you can see the surface variation in normal. That just kind of makes it look dirty. So we're going to kind of have to tone it down quite a lot. See what it's even doing. Doing much. Kind of see how it looks. Just a test. Maybe it looks really cool, but we're about to find out. Now it's too cloudy, too dirty, so we're gonna remove that. Instead, I'm gonna go back to Steel Dusty. Quixel Metal Steel Dusty. I want to try this. This one's a really good one. I really like this one. I'm not sure why. I'm gonna stick with it. Let's see how that really doesn't look too cloudy, but let's see how it looks. There's a lot of trial and error in texturing, so if you're not really here to watch that, then you probably want to skip ahead. So don't recommend it though. It's all a learning process. So yeah, no, it's just not quite doing it. I think part of the reason we're not looking too hot is some of this diffuse variation. It's not. Let me look. You know, this side right here looks a lot better than this side, I think. I think it's because I didn't add this diffuse variation on this side. Okay, let's go with that for now. So you can kind of see the edges, they seem a bit glossier than the rest of the model. We can go ahead and add that as well. So again, when using generators, I like to make sure that we're not doing things super cheesy. We're not just slapping an edge generator and calling it a day. We're kind of just doing something like this, giving it really thin, nice highlight. It looked like if we increase the spec. Yeah, you get this really cheesy sort of metal effect, but you can just lower it if we want. Is that a filter? Let's do a blur slope again. And let's grab this grunge fingerprints dirty. Let's do a multiply. Let's do less contrast. Crank it up so we can get some more. We can get some free variation, gloss variation. Looks cool. One thing I do notice is these edges are kind of chipped a little bit. Okay, there's a really loud car in the parking lot. All right. Where was I? So these corners right here are a little chipped. We can go ahead and add that real quick. Try it with the height. Let's see. Undo that and just kind of do this instead. Just to kind of change the highlight on the corner. Nothing super severe. Something to change it. There we go. Let's do it on this corner as well. They're super subtle. I don't know if anyone will notice these, but maybe. Make it even more noticeable, we can lower the gloss a bit. Yeah, these are super subtle, so. Just on some of these more prominent edges and corners. Okay. Something like that. See if we can see those in the render. See what it looks like. Yeah, you actually can. Very subtle, very, very, very subtle. But it is there. Okay, so let's do. What should we do? Let's add a bit more surface variation. I want to do. I'm going to put some brushing right here. I think that'll be a pretty cool spot for it. Grab this brush, bring it up, duplicate it, and let's paint it on right here. I think that looks really cool. That looks like a good spot for it. Yeah. Quite like that. That's more oil. One thing I did forget to do is I like to really use this one fill layer. This is also a David Gruyer grunge. It's called, what's it called? Fingerprints, or no, it's Daguerre Dirt 01 Fingerprints Black. This one we can add a fill. Put it in right there. So we get some free fingerprints out of it too. So one thing is you don't want fingerprints that are like super small because that just looks like a super. It's like it's out of scale basically. So want to make sure that our fingerprints are the right scale. I like to use the trigger as scale so that your finger. Let's see if I actually have a reference. Yeah, so this guy, he's got bigger hands, but his finger pretty much takes up the entire trigger. So that's about how big your fingerprints should be. So something to keep in mind. And in fact, I think I'm going to remove this and just manually paint it in. I'm going to insert actually two like this. Oh no, they're the same. I just have it downloaded twice. I'm actually going to manually paint it in myself. So I kind of imagine you would put your finger here to kind of put your finger here, and then your other fingers would go on the other side of the cylinder, push it out. So one right there. Yeah, I want to go up. Then we can actually duplicate this and we can go the other way. So we can make it like dirty. Just add some of these smudges. Just like right, maybe, oh shit, that's too strong. Maybe something like right there. Maybe a little more, something like that. Actually, I forget we didn't do it on this side, so we can go ahead and add some here. You kind of use the trigger as a reference to kind of increase the fingerprint. Then we can kind of do just something like that. That looks cool. Some little sharp, little dirty shapes here. That looks cool. Looks kind of a bit blurry, so I'm just going to tone it down a bit. This is going to be a lot of fun doing that part. Yeah. Great. Okay, so let's dirty up, let's wear out some of these edges like we see here. I think that'll be a pretty cool detail to add. So to do that, we're just gonna increase the specular. We'll go down in the diffuse too. And I think we'll increase the gloss. So just kind of paint in some worn out edges. I think we'll actually go back down in the gloss. Yeah, I think we'll do that. So one thing is this edge right here is really worn out. Oops, let's go way down. There we go. Okay, let's add a little bit here. Not too much, not too much. Where else does it look like it's worn? A little bit right here. Curious to see how that's gonna look. Let's see. Might look weird if it's just plain old white in the spec. Let's see. So it doesn't quite read a bit realistically. Maybe a bit of a darker, worn out yellow type of color. I think the stencil that I added will help that a lot. I think it's just too much, I think. Very soft strokes there. Something like that. Come on, look good. Okay, that looks good. Maybe less of a trailing off here, just kind of ends right there. Perfect. That looks great. Oh, one thing I want to do, this piece in here is a silver, so just quickly grab the silver and add it to that. Perfect. Oh, and the barrel in here is also a silver metal, so I believe. I know it's in here somewhere. There it is. Yeah, so this piece is also silver in here. Forgot to do that. Oh. Anything else we forgot? No, I think that's all of it. Okay, let's unisolate. There we go. Let's add a couple more of these. These look really cool. I like this. Not sure where else it would be though. Perhaps right here. Right here. My theory is that because this thing slides in and out so much, you're always constantly touching this part right here and wearing it out. So that's the thought process behind that. It may not be in the reference, but maybe you can kind of see it here, but we're just kind of going for it, making it look cool. Cool. Let's see what happens if I do a little bit of sharp shapes throughout. Something like these little scratches here. Doesn't look too bad. I just realized we didn't put oil around this bolt here, or around this one, so we need to do that. I'd like to see some of it right here too. This looks kind of cool. Cool. Notice we didn't add any up here too. Can't believe I forgot that. I was wondering why things were looking a little bit flat, but I can't believe I forgot this. Love this. I love this part, adding oils and stuff to the bolts. It looks so cool. I can't believe I forgot it. actually not strong enough down here. I imagine gravity would help the oil leak out of the bottom, so. Let's see what we look like. Percent. Looking good, looking good. Looking better, looking a lot better. I'm kind of just curious to see what happens if I crank this slider. Okay, I have kind of a change I need to make, so it looks pretty good when I do that. So here's the deal. I'm gonna duplicate this. That's gonna increase all the gloss. Increase the slider. However, I'm gonna paint out certain areas that are just too strong. Like some of these, that. Because this dark effect is really what I want to see. Yeah, that looks okay. That looks great now. I'm really liking that. There. Let's change this to subtract. Actually, I already painted it, so why not? Yeah, this dark effect is really what I want. So we made a bit of an audible, called an audible there. So now we just want to make sure that the oils are tied in well with the barrel. And I think we are doing great. I think we look really great there. Cool. Next, let's work on the iron sight a bit. Yeah, I think we can work on the iron sight a bit. So the iron sight, let's see it. Here we go. Here's a great reference of it. So let's make. I think I need a whole new layer. It's getting a bit messy. All of this stuff. So, oh well. Just gonna add some stripes. Add black mask. Add a fill. Input some stripes. Yep. Rotate it. 135 is the correct value for this one. Let's add a paint. Multiply. Set it to multiply. How the hell is that? Dude, so many noises outside. Sorry about that. Not sure if you can hear that, but. So one thing I want to make sure is that we're readable from a distance of like about right here. And it looks like we're doing pretty good. So I'm going to take this UV border distance up here. I'm going to set it to subtract. Because I have a cool effect that I like to do. And I'm going to show you how to do it. So invert. So you see how it kind of removes it from the border there. It creates this really cool, like, I don't know how to call it, kind of tapers off there. So increase the balance, sort of like that. And then I think I want to increase the contrast a bit. It's pretty subtle, but it's there. And that's, yeah, I kind of like doing that. Although I'm going to kind of manually input 0.005 just to get a tiny bit of the effect going, but nah. think actually this is kind of one of the cases where I'm not actually going to use it. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to use that. So one thing I will do is add a filter. Add a very slight warp. Super subtle. And just take down the gloss on them a little bit. So we gotta end up with that. And I noticed in another reference, this one, but maybe it was something like this reference here. Oh, this reference is great. So here we can actually kind of see the tapered off end effect. So maybe I'll just, maybe I'll re-enable that, put in like 0.009. Nah. Yeah, I just don't think it's going to be a big deal, so we're just going to remove it. You can see these heights specs and stuff, so we're going to add that. We can actually duplicate this. Add a paint layer, set it to multiply. Deselect everything, only select this layer up here. And punch out the height. I don't like working on it sideways, I like doing it vertically. There we go. Cool. So now we got that sort of thing going. I'm going to reduce the warp by turning down the opacity on it. Make it like ultra subtle. Just to kind of break up the highlight a little bit so it's not as even. And then I think we're good with that for now. The oils on it look fine, I think. Well, actually maybe a little bit too much. Which layer is it here? Is it one of these layers? Yeah, this one. Oh, wait. Yeah, that's what I want. Kind of paint out some of that oil there. We get something kind of like that. Not bad, not bad. All right. Looks like this bake error returned. I thought I fixed that. That's really strange that that's happening again. All right. I'll have to fix that. Sometimes when you export this mesh and put it into like 3ds Max or something, you get just really some strange shading sometimes. So I gotta fix that. But that's no problem. All right, let's get some of these decals in. Let's pull up my stencil for the project. So we've got R right here. Right there. I like to use the normal channel just to kind of preview things because I guess I didn't set this thing up. Actually, I did. Actually. Yeah, there we go. Didn't think of that. Let's go ahead and input some of these tally marks here. They're about yay big. Looks like it's about halfway between these two, so we'll go about right there. Just realized my stroke opacity was not up all the way, which will not affect much, but there you go. Let's just quickly do this. There we go. And then it looks like there's a notch right here on the middle. It looks like this person calibrated their sights so that it's not lined up, but we're just gonna go straight down middle here. Okay, let's grab this UP thing. Not sure what this is for. Or actually, I know it's to adjust the I think this one's the elevation of the sight. So we go there. Put the P in there just so we can get a reference. It's like right there. I think that's just about it for all the decals too. Now, if you take a look at this rough, you can kind of see a highlight on all the edges of the gun, which is an interesting note, actually. Okay, let's go ahead and add some normals to it. We had this really good reference here. So one thing I'm going to do, let's make a new folder for sight normals. Go ahead and add a fill there, and I'm going to add plastic. Gonna go ahead and add Quixel plastic computer to it. Material. And that's an ugly little error right there. Damn. This site is pretty gritty, what I'm seeing. And I think that'll be some nice separation. A bit of a grittier metal as opposed to a bit of a smoother, cleaner metal right next to it. Let's also paint out some of the oils. Not really too happy with those. Instead, paint some around the bolt. So this kind of effect looks kind of blur slopey, so kind of looks like I can see through the blur slope. So what I'm going to do is take the edges that we did and just paint it out. Or maybe actually just kind of edit it, actually. Cool, something like that. So now we can see this little splotch here, this kind of gray splotch. We're going to do that in the specular. And the reason I think of doing that in the specular is because it's kind of like, I feel like the metal's just been used so much that it's kind of just wearing out and showing the coat underneath. So that's kind of my thought process behind that. So we'll just do something like that and then tone down. We'll do that on a paint layer. This will add some nice contrast when we shine it in the light, just like that. That looks awesome. That looks really great. Add a bit of contrast there. Maybe a little bit here too, although the shading error is really not ideal. What I'm doing right now. One thing I did notice is this bolt has some pretty harsh brushing on it, which we forgot to add. brushing is not working. Oh, I know why it's not working, because this is the wrong metal material. So I'm going to take this, put it in base silver. That's what I wanted to do. Oopsies. All right. Cool. Now we're talking. And some dirt. Okay. I think that looks pretty good. Let's see how it looks in the render. I think I have a couple of angles that we can view that from. This angle, it looks nice. I need to edit this bolt. See that there before? Top angle. Top angle looks good, although this looks a little splotchy. Where did I do it? This material here. Yeah, that's too splotchy. Too much. This one looked good. I think I liked that. Let's see what else we need to add. Could add a bit of dirt to it. Yeah, just with a different stencil, of course. I'll just use my grunge fingerprints. Dirty. And we'll just paint on simple dirt. I think this is kind of an epilepsy warning, so I just realized like it was kind of like hurting my eyes, so I was like, oh. All right. So with that out of the way, we can add a bit of brushing in these little strokes here, or insets here. Do I have brushing? I do have brushing already. So hopefully these were unwrapped same direction. They are not. Looks like these two are different directions. I'll go ahead and exaggerate it quite a bit, duplicate it, add a black mask. We could planar project it so we get all the same, but to be honest, it doesn't really matter. So we'll just rotate it 0, and there we go. Get something like that. So what I like to do is I like to just do kind of a pass and just kind of see where we're at visually between the two materials that we've textured so far, just to make sure that we're kind of blending them in nicely. One thing I will do is, since we burned the barrel quite a bit right here, I think I'll add the same here. For that, I'll lower the specular, maybe decrease the gloss. Let's see how that looks. Add black mask. I like that. I think that looks cool. Let's add some. I feel like this looks like a good area for some brushing. Sort of duplicate all these brushing layers and just kind of see what looks cool. I think this looks pretty cool. Whenever I see kind of a shape that's like rounded and kind of cut in like this, I like to think of some cool ways to make it read a little bit different than the others. I think that looks sweet. With that being said, I think I'll add some in the inside of the trigger guard. I believe if you look at the normals, you can see the direction because it's a little hard to see, and it's all looking good. I unwrapped these as one straight loop, I believe. Yep, this is the trigger guard right there. Just one straight loop. Sweet. Nice and easy to add details like that. Now, if we do end up doing some sort of a close-up down here, it'll look really nice. Yeah. Sweetness, I think. Okay. One thing I kind of noticed is it's kind of just lacking like some just visually interesting areas. So like we have the scratch here. I think I'm gonna add another one of those actually. So remember where we did that scratch, what layer we did it on. One of these. Gotta be one of these, right? Yeah, right here. This is where we did it. So I'm gonna add some more. I'm gonna add one right up here. Specs. So again, I'm gonna grab David Greer's grunge packs here. I'm gonna grab one with some scratches on it. Yeah, just like, oh, this is great. Yeah, this is really good. And painting, now it's too boring. Like that. Let's just tone it down. This scratch looks really cool. I like this one. So we're kind of like creating like a couple of areas that are just visually kind of interesting. Let me close out this scene actually. That was just a little test render I set up. So one thing, oh, I see what we did. So this is kind of my fault. We painted it on the dirt, like barrel burn area. So we kind of just want to kind of avoid that area, so it doesn't look too cluttered. Cool. Let's add a couple of specs. This. Something like this. Make sure we add some on the other side too. We'll add a nice scratch right here. Make this one, probably make this one a bit bigger actually. Wrong paint, there we go. Doesn't always have to be like a directional scratch. It can kind of just be like something like this. Be a little bit more. There we go. Let's add a scratch right here, maybe. Also, I am just noticing we forgot to do this specular on the other side as well. Bit of another oopsies on my part. Okay, something like that. Probably go ahead and do that now. Specular. we do these. Here? No? I had to pause just to kind of find it. We're getting a little lost here. A lot of layers. So it's right here in this color variation layer. So we're going to kind of copy that just onto this side as well. I'm going to try one of these stencils. One of these David Greer. Actually, no, let's switch it back. Let's try. I'm forgetting which one I used on that side, actually. We can try maybe Grunge Wipe Dirty. Try this one. Now that one's too speckly. We can try this one. Okay, let's add the red. Red, let's put it in right there. Things like this are so subtle, we don't really need to stencil it in. Could, but I don't really think it's super necessary. This looks really great. Yeah, this looks really awesome. Let's add a bit more of it up here. And then I think I saw a little bit over here on a different reference. See how that looks. A little too strong right here. Let's take one little quick brush stroke over it. Export it. Perfection. This is looking really awesome. The text looks really fake right now, I'm just realizing, because of this layer. The height on it is looking really kind of fake from that angle. So put it down quite a bit. Yeah, so that's kind of an effect that happens mainly on like old guns, because they would stamp it in, and then the material that was stamped in kind of bubbles up around the edges and makes like sort of a mountain. So that's what we're doing there. I believe it just exported. Yep. Yeah, that looks better. Yeah, this looks awesome. This looks really cool. The color variation's super subtle, but it reads nicely. Oh yeah, I'm really liking this. This side, I think, needs a bit more work right here. I think after that, we could probably call it. I would like to add some metal scratches here. Yeah, I think maybe just some work right here, I think would look much better. So it's just a little bit too speckly all around in this area, so we can go ahead and adjust. I think what we'll do is we'll kind of just simplify it a bit, actually. So see what the main culprit here is, and I think it's this layer. Yeah. So we're going to go ahead and just sort of simplify it to something like this, although that's pretty strong. Cool. I think something like that will help. And then we'll add some oil shapes right here. Scratch there. Maybe a scratch, I'm not too sure. I have an idea. Just like the barrel that we did, we can add some color specs to this, so color spec. And we can just go ahead and color pick that there. Cool. This kind of looks cool too. Just a red value. Not really sure where this red comes from, but it just kind of adds a nice color variation to it. Sometimes you'll just find some color specs and stuff like that on different types of guns, so just another cool detail that we can add. I'll go ahead and pick a different fill layer. I'm just going to use one of these random painter ones. That one's too weird. Yeah, I'll literally just use something like this, and I'll just kind of go like right here and just paint it a little red. Oops. One right here. Neighbors just made a really loud noise. That was annoying. On the other side, add a couple of these micro stuff. One right there. Okay, cool. Let's see how these look. So this looks already kind of too dirty. Gonna have to revise that. Thing about these specs is that the gloss is up. We want it down so we can see it. There we go. Okay, now it's a bit too strong in the gloss, so we'll do that. Then one thing I want to do is just kind of reduce the size of it. Try to make it super subtle, so probably will go just unnoticed, but yeah, so this big shape just looks really kind of dirty, so going back and forth, but texturing is always like this, at least for me. You could nail it first try, good for you, but I can't, so. That looks great. I'm gonna do one more thing for the oils at least. We're gonna kind of do these oils up here. So I'm just gonna go ahead and duplicate this layer, add a black mask to it, add a generator, and then I'm gonna add a paint. Actually, let's go ahead and just set up the dirt generator. Let's add the blur slope filter. Intensity, crank it to like, turn the dirt down a bit. There we go. Add a paint, set it to multiply. Deselect everything. That we're only up here. There we go. And now we think we can use up here. Yeah. So we can use this to paint. Maybe we'll make this one a dirt. Kind of nice. I kind of like that. Add a levels to kind of mess with it. Okay. Try that. stencil in some oils. This one will crank the gloss on it. We could probably just stick with this stencil. It's not that big of a deal. Let's do something like that. We could just do something like that too, like this. Not really a whole lot of thinking, just kind of putting it in places I think would look nice and add a nice contrast. Maybe not right there, maybe something like this. Too much. So it doesn't look untextured up here if we do happen to render from this sort of angle, which is a very real possibility. It kind of looks cool up here. Yeah, so we'll do that. We lower the diffuse right here to add like kind of a fake AO effect, which isn't, that's something that clients don't like. So this is something more for just portfolio. Clients don't usually like doing fake AO because then it kind of chokes the model a little bit, and then it breaks their PBR, you know. So when they add your AO on top of this fake AO, it gets just too dark. So we're gonna keep something like that. Oh, we're on the wrong. I just tried this, adding dirt on this area. It could work. It could work. Yeah, let's do that. Little happy little accident there. You can kind of find areas that we can kind of just get some free variation using this fill layer. So something like right there. Careful not to overdo it though, but in here maybe. But I think the body's looking at a pretty good spot right now, so I think I'm gonna move on to the hammer real quick. So here we can get some really nice, we can really see what's going on with the materials here. So one thing I'm noticing is got brushing going along the side of it. There and right there. Pretty harsh. Harsh like that. Let's go ahead and paint out this harsh edge right here. Let's go ahead and just kind of do this. I like to do that just to kind of... so let's do this. Let's do triplanar projection. Yeah, that'll work. And then let's grab our projection and rotate. Like that, yeah. And then same thing. Let's go ahead and paint out the harsh edge. Okay, one thing I noticed is at the top of it, it almost seems like there's a seam here and then like a bit brighter on the material. So I think what I'll try to do, I'll increase the gloss just a bit. And I think what I'll do is I'll do this. I'll grab another metal material, paint it a bit on top here, and then increase the gloss up there. I think I can actually just do this. Go ahead and just select the UV island. I think I can just do that. Not sure why this effect is happening. Maybe it's because of the oils or something, but go ahead and add it in. Add another brush. This one will go right in here, and it's already lined up properly. Nice. Increase the noise. 90 degrees. And this one is affecting all of these over here, so I'm just going to paint all. Maybe leave a little bit of it in, but there. Something like that. Cool. One thing I noticed is that it's not lined up right. A little strange how that's happening, and I think I know why. I think I know why that's happening. So it's like, we notice that we're triplanar projecting, but it's vertical right here and not lined up on this side. So that's because triplanar projection is happening on all of these different models. So I think we need to crop it to the shape, move it down right there. Then let's tile it up. Still not working. That is interesting why that's happening. Oh, I was looking at it wrong. Okay, I paused the video, but it's actually correct. So there we go. The issue resolved. So let's see how this looks. Cool. Let's look at the top view. Interesting, cool. I think what I'll do back here is add some stripes. To add it. There we go. Just so not everything is just brushing. This is what I kind of like to switch it up with. You'll see me use stripes a lot in my work. I just think it looks so cool. 135, there we go. Crank this up to like 60, we get a weird effect, so we crank it down right there. This, we make it just a height and a gloss thing. Turn up the height, turn down the gloss. We mess with the channels like with the opacity slider. That, take the height channel. We can't see it here, but yeah, something like that will look really nice. Surface variation. Oh yeah, that looks awesome. That looks super cool. This looks really nice up here. Okay. Let's try to add some more noise to the hammer. Well, actually, maybe not. Let's see. The hammer is pretty matte, which I think we got going pretty good. It's pretty matte silver. I think we achieved pretty well. This part looks pretty decent. Using some of the base layers from the weapon, from the main body of the weapon, it kind of applied there too. It looks pretty nice. Let's see. Nice. I think this looks nice. See if we're missing any parts. Oh, this screw. We forgot to do this screw. Okay. Add a paint layer. Kind of manually paint in some chips. Edge wear. See right here. A little bit. Keep it subtle. Let's see. If we're missing anything from the reference, I think we got everything. I think right here, I'm going to add some brushing. A lot of brushing, a lot of different types of brushing and different effects to add. Then we will rotate. About right there. That's weird. Did we have a bake error? Oh, the bake error only shows up on that side, not this side. But this bake error shows, okay, whatever. Kind of weird. I am noticing one thing real quick, actually, that kind of a big change is there's brushing. Let's just add this real quick. Getting ahead of myself. Yeah, actually, that looks cool. That looks cool. That was just kind of a thing I just mistakenly kind of just did. Add brushing on a few of these edges like that. Looks kind of cool. We'll do something like that. Interesting. Kind of an interesting detail. We're gonna add brushing on the back piece here. I'm noticing it in this reference. It's very subtle, but it is noticeable. Rotate it. Looks like 90. Nope. 0. There we go. Just like that. Literally just like that. That looks really good. Nice. That looks really awesome. One thing I'm going to do really quickly is add dirt in these crevices. That's pretty easy. We just do dirt crevice. Don't really need to do much. Just do a generator. Dirt. It already gets picked up all in here. Let's actually do this on the top because this is two different materials that we're dealing with. So dirt crevice, add a paint, set it to multiply. Deselect everything. Select, or manually paint in rather, these areas and these areas. Cool. So these are darker values. I don't think we want. About there, lower the gloss. Autosave kicks in. Shout out to autosave. Add fill. Let's use this dirty fingers fill again to multiply it so that we can get sort of these dirt shapes. Contrast it a little bit. Cool. Pretty subtle, simple. And it shows up nicely. Adds a nice contrast in those areas. This gets used a lot. This gets used a lot. I don't know if this is a single action or a double action revolver, but I forget when I was watching the video. I modeled this thing quite a while ago, so. Let's go ahead and export that, see how we look. I see the difference in variation there. That looks great. This metal right here looks awesome. Great. I am noticing one thing. There's this grinding brushing effect going on these pieces up here. So we'll go ahead and add that real quick. I think we might be good there. I'll probably call it right there, actually. For this. I don't even know why I say that. It's always something happens and I'm like, oh, I need to do this. Oh, I need to do that. That's the beauty of texturing. So there's always something to add. That's what feedback's for too. Figure out what to add. Let's remove some of this oil. I don't really like it right there. Go ahead and just paint it out. And I think we gotta paint it out up here too. It's the filler that's doing that. This one, yeah. Yeah, I think that looks cool. Noticing a bit of red around here. All right, we're gonna add that too. That was done up here in the body metal. Let me just color code these things real quick. Body metal color variation was done right here. Let's grab the specular channel so we can see the thumbnail right here. All right, let's see how that looks. Ooh. Subtle, I like it. All right, I think I'm going to end it there. I think what I'm gonna actually do is do one final video at the end where I kind of do just like a touch-up pass of everything, because that's kind of how I do it anyways, you know. I do portfolio work that way. So I think we've got a pretty good result from this. We got some nice oils, some nice color variation. Yeah, this thing looks really awesome. I like it. One thing. Oh, I see. Okay. A bit of moire effect right there. I might have to go back and fix that. So I think that'll end this part of the tutorial. I apologize, it's a bit long, but you know, we gotta make sure the body's looking really cool. So I think that'll end that. And then I think next part we'll do the bullet, cylinder, and the trigger all together. So with that, I will see you guys on the next part. See ya.